Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the conversation about one of the most disruptive emerging technologies, quantum computing, and its potential impact on cybersecurity. You may have heard the term Q-Day. It refers to the moment when quantum computers become powerful enough to break the encryption that protects much of our digital world. That means banking systems, government communication, medical records, and even personal emails could be suddenly exposed. So why does this matter? Our current encryption algorithms like RSA and ECC are foundational to the digital trust. If they break, the implications ripple across industries and borders. Today I'll walk you through three key themes. Number one, the risk quantum computing poses to our existing security and infrastructure. Number two, the opportunities this technology opens up for better protection and innovation. And lastly, legal and policy framework we need to develop now to manage this transition responsibly by end of this presentation. I hope you'll agree that while this threat feels like it belongs in the future, planning must begin today before technology outpaces our readiness. I want to define a term that's central to the conversation, Q-Day. Q-Day is a shorthand for the day when a quantum computer becomes powerful enough to break widely used encryption standards like RSA and ECC. These cryptographic systems are embedded in almost everything. Online banking, secure emails, digital signatures, and even government and corporate communications. To put it in simple terms, encryption is a lock and quantum computing is the future's master lockpick. Classical computers solve problems step by step on a linear time scale, which makes tasks like factoring large prime numbers, what RSA is based on, extremely time consuming. However, using tools like Shor's algorithm, quantum computers can simultaneously run through many possibilities. What used to take years or centuries could be done in minutes or even seconds. But the real danger isn't just the moment Q-Day arrives. It's the strategy many adversaries are believed to be using now. Harvest now, decrypt later. That means they may already be collecting encrypted files today, from sensitive corporate documents to personal data, with the intent to unlock it all later. Once the quantum capabilities are strong enough, so even though Q-Day hasn't happened yet, the clock is already ticking for data that needs to remain private for years or decades. Let's walk through a hypothetical but very plausible scenario of what a post-quantum cyber attack could look like. Imagine an international finance hub, like a major city stock exchange, suddenly thrown into chaos. Unauthorized trades start to appear. Funds are redirected or withdrawn. System log shows valid digital signatures that are under current encryption could be mathematically impossible to forge. Panic spreads as government agencies realize their secure VPN and encrypted email systems have been breached. Investigations uncover that cryptographic keys generated by classical algorithms have been broken. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a hostile actor, perhaps a rogue nation state or a well-funded cybercrime syndicate, is using a powerful quantum computer to decrypt data in real time. The breach began with a single encrypted file, long considered uncrackable. But once opened, it exposes keys and credentials that gave access to an entire network. In a matter of days, sensitive military intelligence is leaked, billions in fraudulent transactions occur, public trust is in digital system collapses or erodes. Stock markets crashes, global trade shows signs of slowing down, institutions scramble to either roll out post-quantum encryption or fall back to offline or maybe manual processes. This may sound like a movie plot, but it highlights the systematic risk posed by the quantum world. It's not just about your personal messages being read. It's about collapse of digital infrastructure we have come to realize, on globally. Let's take a moment to explore why the quantum threat, why the quantum threat isn't just theoretical; it's urgent. Starting with the technical side, quantum computers pose a direct threat to encryption, as we have seen. Using Shor's algorithm, they could break widely used public key systems like RSA by factoring large numbers exponentially faster than classical computers. And then Grover's algorithm can further reduce the time needed to, for brute force, sort of a brute force attacks that can threaten the symmetric encryption keys like AES, or algorithms like AES. But the issue doesn't really end here. The problem is actually compounded by policy gap. Many legal and regulatory systems specifically list cryptographic method like RSA 2048 as acceptable. This rigid naming makes it difficult to respond quickly when those methods are broken. Unlike crypto agile systems that allow fast algorithms updates, current policies often lock organizations into outdated standards. Then there is timeline uncertainty. Some experts warn Q-Day and the day quantum computer breaks encryption could happen within the next decade, or others believe it might already be happening behind closed doors. That ambiguity makes planning harder, but also makes inaction even riskier. So when you combine advanced technical threat with a slow-moving and rigid policy framework, the potential for chaos becomes real. Who's liable in the post-quantum breach? Which standards should companies follow? How do we rebuild trust if consumer data is compromised? These are the questions we must address now before it's too late. Now let's put policy relevance to the center. Policy relevance and how our current data security laws may not be ready for quantum-powered future. Starting with the data privacy, most major regulations like Europe's GDPR or the US HIPAA were written under the assumption that classical cryptography is sufficient. They often define acceptable encryption methods or key lengths explicitly, but when quantum computing becomes mainstream, today's secure encryption could become easily breakable, putting protected health and financial data at risk. And then there is the issue of retention and sunset provisions. Organizations are often required to store data like patient's record, financial reports, internal communications for years, even decades. If that data was encrypted using now vulnerable methods, and future quantum attack could expose entire archives of sensitive information. Policymakers might need to mandate re-encryption with post-quantum algorithms as a form of ongoing compliance. Liability and compliance becomes murky in the quantum context. If a breach happens because a company didn't upgrade its cryptography, are they negligent? Should regulations evolve to treat quantum readiness as a baseline for reasonable security? These are the kinds of legal questions that will soon dominate courts and compliance alike. So while quantum presents technical challenges, it also demands an urgent policy response before outdated laws become our weakest link. Well, not all is doom and gloom when it comes to quantum computing. In fact, it opens exciting possibilities for innovation in cybersecurity. First, we have post-quantum cryptography researchers and standard bodies like working on cryptographic algorithms designed to resist quantum attacks. One promising approach is called lattice-based cryptography, which can be integrated into current systems. However, these algorithms often demand more processing power, so implementation will require thoughtful engineering. Next, there is quantum key distribution, or QKD in short. This uses the laws of quantum mechanics to securely distribute encryption keys. What makes QKD so powerful is that any attempt to intercept the keys becomes immediately detectable. While it's ideal for highly sensitive communication, Limitations like high cost, distance constraints currently prevents it from scaling widely. Lastly, there's potential for quantum enhanced defenses. Quantum computers could support more advanced cybersecurity analytics or enable the generation of truly random numbers, an essential component for strong encryption. Of course, these innovations will only be effective if they are affordable, standardized, and backed by clear policy directions. The key is making sure the transition to the quantum safe system is not just technologically sound, but it also inclusive and achievable for all sectors. Now, let's put our attention to the current legal and regulatory perspective. Where do we stand currently? First, there's a concept of crypto agility. This refers to the ability to swap out cryptographic algorithms without having to rebuild entire systems. It's becoming a legal and regulatory priority, with policymakers starting to mandate that systems be designed with algorithm agility in mind. This ensures organizations can quickly adapt when new quantum safe standards are introduced. Next, we have export controls, which become important because quantum computing is a dual use technology, meaning it has both civilian and military applications. Just like strong encryption was once tightly regulated, quantum technologies may face similar restrictions. However, the current laws might not be prepared for this shift, and if they are not updated, they could either overly restrict innovations or fail to prevent misuse. We are also starting to see industry-specific guidelines emerge. Financial institutions, healthcare systems, national defense agencies all operate under different security standards. These sectors will likely be early movers in mandating quantum safe encryption practices to ensure continuity and protection across critical infrastructure. Finally, there's the issue of liability. In many legal systems, organizations are expected to maintain reasonable security. As quantum threats become more widely recognized, the definition of reasonable will likely evolve to include being quantum ready. Companies that fail to act on known risks could face lawsuits, fines, reputational damage, especially if they are operating in a sensitive or high impact areas. In short, legal frameworks must evolve alongside the technology, balancing innovation, security, and accountability in the quantum age. Adopting quantum secure solution isn't just a technical challenge. It comes with the real world implementation hurdles. And first is cost and complexity. Transitioning to post-quantum cryptography doesn't just mean updating software, it can involve major hardware changes too, like upgrading security chips, smart cards, or embedded devices. For large enterprises, this can mean millions in cost. For small to mid-sized organization, it can be a serious barrier. Next is technological uncertainty. With ongoing research in post-quantum computing, there is no universal agreement yet on which algorithm will ultimately stand the test of time. That uncertainty makes it harder for policymakers and businesses to commit. Nobody wants to invest heavily in the standard that may soon be obsolete. There's also a lack of quantum expertise. Many policymakers, legal advisors, and executives don't have the deep understanding of quantum tech. Bridging this knowledge gap requires education, workshops, and strong collaboration between business leaders and technical experts. Lastly, ethical and surveillance concerns. In the wrong hands, a powerful quantum system could become a universal decryption tool. Governments could use it to break encryption at will, raising major civil liberties and privacy issues. Laws must be carefully crafted to protect personal freedoms while still enabling national security. Addressing these challenges will require not only innovation, but also foresight, cooperation, and strong governance. Now, regulatory harmonization is one of the most important and most complex challenges in the quantum era. The threat posed by quantum decryption is inherently global. Data breaches don't respect geographic boundaries. If encryption standards vary too much across countries, we risk a fragmented response, opening the door to exploitation in weaker jurisdictions. Let's start with North America. US tends to lead through federal standards, especially via NIST, which plays a central role in defining quantum-safe cryptographic methods. Canada often follows suit but retains flexibility, adapting timelines to its national cybersecurity strategy. Europe has a different approach. It typically legislates at the EU level and with sweeping policies like GDPR and upcoming updates to IDAS or EDAS and the Cyber Resiliency and the Cyber Resilience Act could embed quantum requirements across bloc. However, each member state implements differently, which introduces variation. In Asia, things become more diverse. China is heavily investing in quantum research and development and might push its own standards, though often with less international transparency. Countries like Singapore, Japan, South Korea are advancing with targeted national policies, combining public sector funding with strategic tech rollouts. These differences lead to a global patchwork. Multinational companies may have to juggle several sets of quantum compliance regulations. It complicates supply chains, international partnerships, and even cloud data security. There's a clear path forward, though. Multilateral institutions like G20 or WTO could sign minimum encryption standards, and then bodies like ISO can help standardize globally, and Tech Industry Coalition can push governments towards more unified regulations. The ultimate goal? Ensure harmonization so that security and innovation aren't bottlenecked by borders. As we close, let's summarize some practical steps that organizations and policymakers can take today to prepare for the post-quantum era. First, we recommend an immediate assessment. Organizations should inventory where they are currently using cryptographic algorithms like RSA or ECC, whether that's in communication, databases, or even long-term backups. Archived data can remain sensitive for decades, so we need to identify, prioritize what needs to be protected well into the future. Second, governments must modernize legislation. This includes updating legal frameworks to reflect quantum era threats, setting clear deadlines for adopting quantum safe standards, and allowing for crypto agility. The ability to upgrade cryptographic systems as new standard emerges. It's also important to define liability clearly to hold organizations accountable when they neglect to act on known risks. Third, global coordination is essential. Quantum computing is not a localized issue. Its implications stretch across borders. International agreement could help prevent a secretive quantum arms race, ensure that export controls are aligned and effective. Fourth, we need strong public-private partnership. Quantum innovation is being driven by tech companies, startups, and universities. Governments can accelerate this transition by investing in research, providing grants, fostering open dialogue between sectors to ensure secure, scalable, and widely tested solutions. And finally, security must be balanced with privacy. Quantum capabilities could empower surveillance just as easily as they could protect us. So any policy involving quantum encryption or decryption must include strict safeguards for civil liberties and personal privacy. This shift is on par with other major transitions like Y2K, but with far higher stakes. By preparing now, we avoid reactive scramble and put ourselves in the position to safely harness the power of quantum technology in the years to come. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.